Now, CNN has spoken with a commander, a Ukrainian military commander, who's been defending the city from the siege.
Я хотела сказать четко и ясно. Нас обстреливала украинская армия, украинские батальоны. Мэр города Мариуполя Бойченко в открытую призывал делать коктейли Молотова и бросать в российских военных.
Take a listen to what he sent us a day ago.
People are cooking food in the streets, risking their lives under the continuing shellings.
Все аптеки перебиты, все магазины, все везде перебито. Они приезжают, среди дворов ставят автоматы, вернее, эти пулеметы, вот эти непонятные, я не знаю, вот этих я не могу ответить конкретно, какие снаряды. Но факт тот, что вот они приехали во дворах, там, где школы, там, где люди. Они оттуда вас стреляют, я не знаю, мне просто нет слов.
And the temperature is -5 degrees Celsius in the street. Killing the civilian, the amount of victims grows every day.
Никаких коридоров. В подвалах сидели. Азов, сука, выезжали люди, Азов, блядь, расстреливал пидорасы, сука. Что Азов делал? Расстреливал колонны, блядь, мирных, нахуй, пытались выезжать на Володарск, расстреливали автобусы, блядь.
Now it is more than 3,000, but nobody knows the exact amount because people are buried together in the same tomb with no names.
Украинская армия не помогала вам?
Украинская армия стреляла. Прям в пол.
Many bodies are just outside the streets without being buried. Some of people are under the ruined buildings buried alive. Ukrainian army is trying to help civilians with food and water.
У нас нету ни связи, ни воды, ни тепла. У нас ничего нету, мы ничего не знаем. По слухам, нам сказали, что там вывозят, там есть коридоры. Наш двор какой-то, как будто медом намазан. Вот приедут, постреляют, отъедут. Потом опять приедут, обстреляют, едут. Как живой щит. Мы как живой щит были. Что нас спрашивают, что мы хотим? Мы хотим мира.
But it's not enough. There is no safety places for people in Mariupol.
Люди бедные, те, которым у них нечем выехать, у них нету транспорта. Мы уезжали, они плакали, они рыдали. Им просто нету транспорта, нечем выехать. Выезда никакого официального нет. Мы на свой страх и риск. Вот, нам сказали, что можно сегодня выехать. Мы собрались в 2 секунды. Самое необходимое, вот так вот позакидывали в машину и поехали.
The missiles of the enemy are attacking the houses and people are dying in their beds.
Это в одном только доме.
Почему вы раньше не выехали?
А нас никто не выпускала.
Моя соседка забрала маму свою с 23-го микрорайона. Сказали, что да, они зашли, 2 девятиэтажки, они полностью людей выселили и сами туда заселились. Люди с пакетами поуходили все, со слезами на глазах, искать какие-то себе убежища.
Скажите, где?
Как украинские военные к вам относились, украинские военные?
Там, уже я рассказывала, как. Зверски, понимаете?
Можно несколько примеров вот повторить?
Ну как, смотрите, нет еще русских ребят, нет никого, да?
Да.
Заперли нас в подвалы, и вот это над нами в дома лупят, танки, откуда еще ребят?
The World Food Program is warning Afghanistan is facing a, quote, tsunami of hunger. The group estimates 23 million Afghans face acute food shortages, including nearly 9 million who are close to starvation. Afghanistan's economy collapsed after the U.S. and international financial organizations froze Afghan assets after the fall of Kabul. Afghanistan's economy collapsed after the U.S. and international financial organizations froze Afghan assets after the fall of Kabul. Earlier this week, Senator Bernie Sanders urged President Biden to take immediate action. Sanders wrote, quote, Afghanistan is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. I urge the Biden administration to immediately release billions in frozen Afghan government funds to help avert this crisis and prevent the death of millions of people. We're joined now by Jane Ferguson. She's a special correspondent for PBS NewsHour, contributor to The New Yorker. She's reported extensively from Afghanistan over the years and was in Kabul as it fell to the Taliban in August last year. She returned to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan in November to report on the humanitarian crisis. Her latest piece for The New Yorker, Afghanistan has become the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Jane, welcome back to Democracy Now! In your piece, you write, exhausted mothers stood next to the beds and stared wide-eyed at their babies. One leaned over, sang lullabies, and gently kissed her child's cheek. About a third of the children who arrive at the unit do not survive. The new government is struggling to feed the country's 39 million people, and the chance that an Afghan baby will go hungry and die is the highest in 20 years. Can you describe the suffering you saw in this neonatal unit, and not only in this one hospital, but what you found? I mean, the worst it's been in 20 years since the U.S. invaded Afghanistan, you're saying.
Yes, Amy, what we've really seen is the collapse of not only any kind of economic means for those mothers and their husbands to be able to make enough money to feed the children or to be able to make enough money to feed themselves and lactate babies. But we've also seen a compounding crisis because the medical institutions and the medical facilities across the country have also been collapsing. You know, once the flow of money, once the economic institutions just froze across the country, then you couldn't see anybody who worked at these facilities getting paid or any of the flow of money coming in. So you have families across the country with no income, and then when they take their children to the hospital because the malnourished, because there are such high cases of malnourished babies, many of them have to go to whatever units are open. Now, in that story, I was describing a unit in Kabul, which was one of the few that was still operating. And those beds with babies were sometimes 3, 4 babies in a bed. The hospital staff, many of whom hadn't been paid in months, were basically trying to keep them alive, but said that infections were just running riot through the units because they just don't have the medicines. They're completely overwhelmed with malnourished babies and massively understaffed. Many of those mothers that I described will have had to come from rural areas where local clinics many of them have completely collapsed. A recent statistic by Save the Children in Afghanistan said that as little as 17% of medical facilities across the country are now fully operational.